Good morning, folks. This video is for Pre-Algebra Chapter 5, Lesson 2, Fractions and Decimals. No quote today. It's a little long. You'll see why. All right. Fractions and decimals. A terminating decimal has a remainder of 0. And Miss DH, what do you mean by remainder of 0? Well, if you look down here in the lower right-hand corner, we see 5/8, or 5 divided by 8, because remember, a fraction bar is just a fancy way of writing division. Top number goes in the house, bottom number goes outside the house. Divide. If you can get a 0 down here, that means it is a terminating decimal. It means it doesn't go on forever. All right? To write a fraction as a decimal, though, we're going to obviously divide the numerator and the denominator, just like we did here in this little example problem. So first 3 example problems are just going to be easy cheesy. Now, most of you guys are going to use your calculators for this. Numerator divided by the denominator. All right, this homework should go relatively fast, okay? So 1 and 7/8, well, 7/8 turns into a decimal like so, and then we need the 1 because there's a whole number 1. If there's a whole number 1, you need to make sure that there is a whole number at the beginning of your decimal. Okay, next up we have 3 and 3/10. 3/10 turns into 0.3, 3 and 3.3, 3.3, all right? Next up, we have 3/5. 3 goes inside the house, 5 goes outside, that's 0.6. 3/5 is equal to 0.6. Pretty easy cheesy, lemon squeezy. This should be like a review of 4th grade, guys. This should be a review. Okay, moving on. All right, repeating decimals have a block of digits that repeat infinitely. That means they go on forever. The block can be written, can be 1 or more digits that repeat. All right, so every rational number can be written as a fraction and as a decimal that terminates or repeats. All right, write each fraction as a decimal, then state whether it is terminating or repeating. If it is repeating, state the block that repeats. All right, 21 over 22, 21 goes in the house, get the decimal. There's definitely some repeating numbers there, and that's actually what these things are. It means it keeps going on and on and on and on and on. So we have 0.9, 54, 54, 54, 54, 54. Well, the 9 is not repeating, but the 54 is, and so we draw a line over the digits that repeat, over the block of digits that repeat. So this is the block, okay? The 54 is the block, because the 54 is the only thing that repeats. Since the 9 only happens once, and then the 54 repeats, the line only goes over the 54. Okay, so that's the answer. 21 over 22 is equal to 0.9545454, but we'll just say 0.954 with the 54 repeating. So that is a repeating decimal. All right, and then we stated the block, which is 545454. Okay, number 2 was 11 over 8. 11 goes in the house, top number always does, and we have 1 and 375. And we always see the word and when we mean we have a decimal. So and is where the decimal is, okay? So it is terminating because it stops right there. It stops at the 5. It has a remainder of 0. The second fraction, though, 8/11, which is the reciprocal of 11 over 8, if we divide, we're going to get 0.72727272 repeating. Now, that means that the 7/2 is repeating. That means it gets the bar over it to represent the block. Thing is don't get fooled by calculator rounding. If you actually did 8 divided by 11, eventually your calculator at the end of it, when it shows the answer, this one, mine had a 3 at the end. And that's because the 7 rounded the last 2 that was visible on the screen. Don't be fooled by that. Just because you get if you look at your calculator when you're doing this and you have a pattern that stays steady for several blocks where you have like 72, 72, 72, 72, 72, and then you randomly have a 3, that just means that your calculator rounded and that there actually isn't an actual terminating decimal. Just because the pattern stopped on your calculator just means that your calculator has rounded. Don't get fooled by that. The pattern is still consistent. All right, moving on. All right, when comparing fractions and decimals, I recommend writing fractions as decimals. A, it's easy to do on your calculator, and B, then you don't have to convert decimals to fractions, which, especially if you have a repeating decimal, it can be really hard. So it is my recommendation that you turn fractions into decimals, because then you just divide the top number by the bottom number, and most of the time you guys are going to have a calculator. All right? So just remember, decimals are preferred, but not required. Okay? You can turn these into fractions. The only thing is then not only did you have to turn it into fractions, but then you had to do a common denominator. So again, recommendation, turn it to decimal. Okay, so let's turn my two fractions into decimals. 4/5 turns into 0.8, 7/10 turns into 0.7, and let's go ahead and order these. 0.2 comes first, 0.5 comes second, 0.7, which is also known as 7/10, comes third, and 4/5 comes fourth because that's 0.8. There you go, and always remember to write your answers using the original numbers. Yep, okay. All right, let's turn some decimals into fractions. By reading a decimal correctly, you can easily write the decimal as a fraction. So if I have 1.12, this is read as 1 and 12 hundredths. 12 hundredths, because the last digit is in the hundreds place. So let's go ahead and read the next one and see if we can figure it out. So, by the way, that is 1 and 12 hundredths. So the hundredths, the place value of the last digit actually tells me what the denominator is. All right? So let's go ahead and look at this one. We've got 1 and 75 hundredths. Just remember that the and means the decimal. Okay, the and means decimal. So if the 5 is in the hundredths space, that means, and 5 is the last digit, that means that the denominator is 100. So it's going to be 1 and 75 over 100, but we need to simplify. 25 times 3 is 75, 25 times 4 is 100, cancel out this 25s, and we have 1 and 3/4. Next one, we have 2 and 32 hundredths, which means 100 should be my denominator, 32 should be my numerator, and simplify by canceling out the 4s, which gives us 2 and 8 over 25. All right, next one, we have 655 thousandths, and I know it's a thousandths because the last digit is in the thousandths place, so my denominator has to be 1,000. So it's going to be 655 over 1,000. Simplify, the 5s cancel out, and we're left with 131 over 200. Okay. Moving on, the last thing I need to talk to you today is turning repeating decimals into fractions. Now, high school prep people, I'm going to ask you to do this once on your homework and then never again in your life. Honors people, I'm going to ask you to do this once on your homework and once on the test, and then never ask you to do it again in your life. Okay? Now, I might not ask you to do it ever again in your life, but some other teacher might. So it might be useful to know this, but again, I'm only going to ask high school prep to do it once and honors to do it twice. So make sure you kind of understand it, but again, basically after the test you can kind of forget it. Okay? And I never ever had another teacher ask me to do this after pre-algebra. So, yeah. Let's just go ahead and do this. All right, the first step is to set the decimal equal to the variable. So I'm going to use the letter n. N is equal to 0.54 repeating. Then I'm going to multiply both sides by the value of the repeating block. Well, the value of the repeating block is 100, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 100. Okay? Now, since multiplying by 100 would basically just move this decimal over twice, but because it's repeating, there's another 5-4 after this as well, and some more 5-4s actually, because, you know, it goes on forever. Okay, but since I multiplied by 100, I'm just moving the decimal place down a little and getting some whole numbers. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is use the subtraction property of equality. Or no, I'm not. What am I going to do? Oh yeah, I am going to use the subtraction property of equality because I'm going to minus n on both sides. The only thing is that minusing n on both sides, because remember there's an invisible one right there, is it's going to take care of basically this. Where's my highlighter? This. Alright? It's basically just canceling out the repeating part, because both of them are repeating. So if I'm just like, just going to X off the repeating part, it's going to leave me with 99n is equal to 54. Right? Well, I can solve this. I can get n by itself. I can figure out what that is, right? Because n is equal to the repeating part. So if I get n by itself, it's going to tell me what n is. Well, oops. There's a little bit more to it than that. So I'm going to divide by 99. The 99s are going to cancel out. And I'm going to end up with n equals 54 over 99, which simplifies down to 6 over 11. So actually, 0.54 repeating is equal to 6/11. Crazy, huh? Crazy, crazy, crazy. So if you actually took your calculator and did 6 divided by 11, you're going to get 0.54545454, and my calculator rounded the last 5. But, you know, hey, it's pretty cool, right? All right. So here's your challenge. Turn 0.183 with only the 83 repeating into a fraction. The kid who gets it gets 100 Wildcat cash. And this is up for honors and high school prep. I will take the first 5 people who get it right. How's that? First 5 people. All right, I'm done. Good luck with this one. It's a bit of a challenge, at least the repeating decimal part. But other than that, it should be pretty easy. Y'all got calculators. You can do it. All right, bye guys.